Welcome to a special edition of the Simplify Your Retirement Podcast. My name is Steven Strickland, host of the Simplify Your Retirement Podcast. I'm excited today to introduce our guest, Ed Slott. Ed is a nationally recognized IRA distribution expert, a professional speaker, television personality, and best-selling author. He is known for his unparalleled ability to turn advanced tax strategies into understandable, actionable, and entertaining advice. He has been named the best source for IRA advice by the Wall Street Journal, and the USA Today wrote, "It would be tough to find anyone who knows more about IRAs than CPA Ed Slott." Ed also wrote a book recently called The New Retirement Savings Time Bomb. We're going to talk a little bit about that during today's podcast. And so very soon, we've invited Ed to come out to Kansas City area, to Lee Summit, Missouri. We're hosting a special event for clients of Wise Wealth and their guests, and also for the community, and also for listeners of the Simplify Your Retirement Podcast. Ed's going to be here on Thursday night, May 11th, for one night only at the John Knox Pavilion in Lee Summit. We're so excited that Ed is going to be out here, and we're so excited to introduce Ed to our Simplify Your Retirement Podcast listening audience today. Ed, thanks so much for joining us on the Simplify Your Retirement Podcast today.
Oh, it's great to be with you.
Thank you very much. And we're looking forward to, you're going to be out here in Kansas City, in the Kansas City area here, visiting this area, talking about your new book, the New Retirement Savings Time Bomb, on May 11th.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it, and I hope anybody listening now makes their plans. It's Thursday, May 11th at the John Knox Pavilion. Now, I'm not familiar with that, but I'm told it's the place to be.
That's right.
And that's in Lee's Summit, so you should get down there. It's at 7 p.m., and what I'll be talking about, not so much my new book. Yeah, that's a good thing, too.
Right.
But I'll be showing you how to keep more of your hard-earned retirement savings protected from taxes. That's the single biggest factor, taxes.
Yes.
Taxes are the single biggest factor that will separate you from your retirement dreams.
Right.
And most people don't have a plan to keep more of their money protected. I have a plan, and I'm going to share that with Steve May 11th. So be there, 7 o'clock at the John Knox Pavilion. I hope to meet all of you and give you a plan to move your money from accounts that are forever taxed to accounts that are never taxed. In other words, you're going to find out how to get your plan, not the government plan. The government plan, more expensive.
And that's awesome, Ed. We cannot wait to have you out here in the Kansas City area at the John Knox Pavilion on Thursday night, May 11th, coming up very soon. And that's awesome. It's a great topic. And like you said, the number one risk that everyone faces going into retirement, the biggest threat to people's retirement plans and savings, is taxes. And this is going to be an excellent topic. I've heard you speak on this before, so we're real excited that you have decided to come out here and speak to us here, to our clients, to the area here. And I know it's going to be a big night, and we'll look forward to seeing you here. For the podcast.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited.
All right. Thank you, Ed, very much. So today, I know there's been a lot of talk out there about the, Secure Act. First of all, there was the Secure Act, and then all of a sudden there was Secure Act 2.0. And I'm not sure if you know this or not, but is this it for the Secure Act? Is there any more versions of this coming out later?
I think so. I think we're secure enough right now. Anytime, this always hits me. I've been studying tax law as a CPA, a tax advisor, for over 40 years. And there's one constant that's always been the case. Anytime Congress names a tax law, you can almost always bet that whatever they name it, it will do exactly the opposite. So when I saw the original Secure Act, I said, they're calling it the Secure Act.
Right.
Hold on to your wallets. And sure enough, they took some of the biggest advantages of saving for retirement for you and your beneficiaries away. Everything has changed. And that's where you're going to need solutions. And that's what we're going to do at this great event we have planned on May 11th.
Well, that's what I love about, what you talked about. You don't just give us the information, you give us a plan. Like you just said earlier, that's the whole point. We got to have a plan to deal with these things. And
people don't have a plan. They think they have a plan.
Right.
You know that old saying Mike Tyson had? He used to say, was both a philosopher and a boxer,
Yes.
as you know.
Yes.
He said everybody thinks they have a plan until I punch them in the face. Then they don't have a plan anymore. It's the same thing with the taxes. People think somehow magically this is taken care of. But if you have an IRA or a 401k, remember, the taxes have not yet been paid on this account. You have a growing, building debt, not really a savings account. I always say your IRA is an IOU to the IRS, but I'm going to show you how to change that and how to find advisors like Steve who trains on this specifically. I know I'm talking with you now, Steve, but you know, a lot of advisors say they do this kind of planning, but they don't. In fact, there's a lot of advisors that can make you money, and that's fine. But when it comes to your retirement accounts, it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep. Now, Steve Strickland has been studying with us, with our what we call Ed Slott's Elite IRA Advisor Group, to get the education on the tax planning, to help you implement these strategies to keep more of your hard-earned money, to save taxes. You know, if you think about it, Steve, every dollar a person saves in taxes, that's a dollar that can compound for them and their family for the rest of their lives.
Absolutely. It's so important, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the training that me and the other elite IRA advisors get from you and your team to keep us up to date on all these things. And like you said, you can have what you think is a great plan going into retirement, but then all of a sudden, if you're not planning for, you know, the biggest risk, you know, I look at it as you're our silent partner. We have a silent partner all these years as we're investing and saving for retirement in traditional 401ks and traditional IRAs. Our silent partner is there, and they give us, I guess, one benefit, and that is tax deferral. But what our job in the silent partnership is to, earn all the income, defer part of your income, choose the right investments, take all the risk, and then one of these days you accumulate a certain amount of money in your IRAs and 401ks, and then all of a sudden our silent partner is not going to be silent anymore. They're going to be ready for, you know, what they believe is their fair share. And as we know, their fair share is whatever they believe that ought to be. It's not a number that's set in stone once and for all time. It's a number that they can decide at any day of the week, any time of the year, that they can decide how much of those partnership proceeds they can take.
Yeah, you keep saying they. It's Uncle Sam and IRS. That's they.
Yes.
That's the ones who are going to take the money. And I liken this, you know, you make a good point that the government, depending on how much money they will need at the time, and they always need more money, that will determine how much you have to fork over of your retirement savings without even knowing. You know, right now we're at the lowest tax rates. That's why it's critical to attend this program now, because there are opportunities you can take advantage of now. I believe with the debt and deficit levels, at some point the rates are going to go up, but they can make the rates whatever they need. So I liken this, imagine if you were going for a mortgage, right? You're going to buy a home. Let's say you go into the bank, but before you go to the bank, as a good consumer, you check out the mortgage rates, you do a little research, you check out the terms and the conditions and the repayments and all of that. So you're really well prepared. And you go in and you start to ask questions, and the guy at the bank, this never happens, but what if this happened? And the guy at the bank stops you, says, we don't need any questions. And then you might say, but what's the interest rate? Says, don't worry about it. But how much am I going to owe? Don't worry about it. Well, what do you mean, don't worry about it? Then he says, well, when it's time to repay, we'll tell you how much we need. We'll tell you the rate then. Who would ever take that deal, an open-ended deal? Well, I'll tell you who'll take it. What I described is an IRA. Everybody, like you just said, with an IRA has that situation. The government, they'll tell you how much that you'll owe, but at that point, it may be too late. You got to plan for the end of the game. You know, I know we're in the Kansas City area, right? Let me ask you a question. Is that a big football town?
Oh yeah, we've got a pretty decent football team here these days.
Yeah, tell me about it. Have they ever won anything recently?
Oh, yes. You probably have heard, even on the East Coast. You East Coast guys, you heard about the Chiefs.
I'm just kidding you. Of course I know. But I bring up football because it's a similar analogy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a saying in football, the score at halftime is irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
Give me the score at the end of the game, and then I'll tell you who won.
Mm-hmm.
Well, retirement, you got to play for the end of the game. It's how much you keep that counts.
Yes.
You don't know if you've won that game until the very last minute, but you have to plan for the beginning and all through the game.
All right, absolutely. I love this. These are great analogies that you're using here, and no one would normally take that deal from the mortgage company that, hey, we'll let you know at the end how much you're going to owe us. But yet we all do this here with when it comes to taxes. And like you said, historically in the history of the United States, I mean, even though, you know, right now we may be at a top marginal tax rate of 40%, we know that it's been way higher than that number in times past. And when things haven't even been as bad, when the national debt wasn't as bad as it is right now, when the debt to GDP ratio was, you know, not even as bad as it is now. So there's like a perfect storm, it seems, coming in the largest, you know, financial, I guess, it's you know, to me, besides people's income, the largest financial option that the IRS and Uncle Sam has available to them is everyone's 401k and IRA balances. They must be sitting up there
and you know
in
why
Washington,
that is?
D.C., salivating over this.
Oh, of course. And you know why that is? Because, again, that money has not yet been taxed.
Right.
You may be looking at your IRA statement and you might say, well, look, I have 300, 400, 500,000 in my IRA. And I'm here to tell you that's not all yours.
Right.
You only get to keep after tax, the net amount. That's what counts. You can't spend what's going to go to the government in taxes. But you can control your tax rate if you take steps now. And that's exactly what I'm going to go through on our program we have coming up at the John Knox Pavilion in Lee's Summit, Missouri. That's, write this down, 7 o'clock on Thursday, May 11th, 5/11, May 11th. And you're going to get solutions you probably haven't heard anywhere. And what a great time to implement them for two reasons. You have tax rates that are low, and you have an advisor like Stephen Strickland that takes educational training. I'm not talking about these advisors that take, they go online for a half hour while they're scrolling through their Facebook, and then they say, "Well, I trained." This is not that kind of training. What Stephen does, I can tell you, he doesn't. It's not for him to tell you how much, but I can tell you as the company who runs these classes, it has nothing to do with investments. It's about helping you keep your money. And Steve has made a commitment, along with about 500 others, advisors all around the country. Now, you would think every advisor would do this, but they don't, on how to use tax strategies to make the tax laws work for you rather than against you. If you do nothing, they work against you. You cannot ignore the problem here.
Absolutely, and that's why two things. We're excited that you're going to be out here to speak directly to us live, to my clients. I'm so excited to be able to, share your wisdom and guidance and your planning and your strategies with our clients and their guests, and also people just in and around the Kansas City area here coming up on May 11th at the John Knox Pavilion at 7 p.m. Looking forward to it so much. And then just for me personally, it's one of the reasons why I joined your elite group there. Like you said, it goes way beyond. We're not talking about asset allocation strategies. We're not talking about investments. We're talking about the things that actually, that no one's really talking
that put
about.
Money people's pockets. It is amazing to me as a tax planner, a tax advisor, and a trainer, how much any person can save in taxes. You're talking thousands, maybe tens of thousands, depending on how much you have tied up in an IRA and 401k or 401k or a 403b, any tax-deferred account. And here's the thing. For many people who have been saving for, say, a generation or so, 30, 40 years as you've been working, for many people, your IRA or 401k is your largest single asset, but it's loaded with taxes. Imagine trying, back to the home mortgage analogy, trying to retire on a home that maybe it's worth $1 million, but what if there's a $500,000-$600,000 mortgage against it? You can only spend the net. It's the same thing here, except with the tax planning, you can control your rates. And I'm going to show you how to do that at the program. And we're going to have a good time. And you're going to come out of there with solutions you haven't heard elsewhere.
Yes.
It's all about helping you keep more of your hard-earned money. To have more, keep more, and make it last. And anybody can do this. It's just they don't. They figure, oh, that's the way it is. I pay the tax. I take my required minimum distributions. I call that the government plan, where it's out of your control.
Right.
But you can control your tax rates.
Yes.
Most people don't know that.
Right, absolutely. And so, with that in mind, I know that you call IRAs the black hole of estate planning, but do you still look at IRAs, traditional 401ks, as an option for retirement savings? In other words, I know we're going to talk about Roth IRAs and Roth 401ks, but as far as traditional IRAs, traditional 401ks, do you still prefer those over, let's say, a non-qualified account for retirement savings? Or would you say pay the taxes now?
Let's cut out the jargon in case people don't know what qualified or non-qualified is. IRAs, these are these tax-deferred accounts where you haven't paid the tax yet, as opposed to Roth IRAs, tax-free. That's why I love anything tax-free, and you're going to learn how to move more of your money to tax-free vehicles like Roth IRAs and things like that. But IRAs, thanks to the Secure Act, remember what I said earlier, if you don't reel this back and listen to the beginning, what I said Congress did, they literally destroyed IRAs with the Secure Act. See, they name it secure. You better watch your wallets. They destroyed IRAs as a wealth transfer, estate planning, or even as a retirement vehicle, because there's no sense in building an account that's literally contaminated with taxes. If you had like contaminaminated food, would you eat it? Probably not. You'd probably want to do something about it, get rid of it. And that's what we're going to talk about. It's an account that's infested, not invested. I always say an IRA is infested with taxes. And that's the job, to get rid of that taint, that stench, that smell of taxes. IRAs reek of taxes. We've got to clean that problem out. And Congress made it worse, because on the one hand, they say to people, oh, you don't save enough for retirement. And then to people who worked hard and saved a lot, they say, oh, you saved too much for retirement. Now we want it. Like you can't win. You can win if you're proactive and create your plan. So you don't end up with a government plan. You want to be in control. I cannot stress that enough. And you can be. It's just most people don't know that.
Right, absolutely. And so obviously people that have options in their 401ks, thankfully, it seems like one thing that has happened recently is there's a lot more Roth 401k options. Employer plans are offering Roth options and Roth IRAs. So you think that's a good thing for people?
Anytime you can move money into a tax-free vehicle, you're way ahead of the game. I call Roth IRAs or Roth 401ks like tax insurance. It's insurance against the uncertainty of what future higher taxes could do to your standard of living in retirement. No, people want certainty and stability. You don't want to come to retirement and have this money you were counting on and then find out half of it you're going to have to give right back to the government. Who wants to know that then? When you're in retirement, when you're the most vulnerable, when the paychecks stop, now is the time to do the planning. But I'll tell you this, for people thinking about going and they say, well, I'm already in retirement. When I say thinking about going to our program at the John Knox Pavilion, May 11th, if you're already retired, there's still things you can do. Why? Because tax rates are still historically low, and there's things you can do to get rid of the problem.
Right. Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. Some people say, "Oh, well, it's too late for me. I'm already retired. I'm past."
It's never too late.
Okay.
I have a test. If you can fog a mirror, it's not too late.
Right. Exactly. So, like you said, Roth-omania is here. Thankfully, Roth 401ks are out there. Roth, I guess, if there is some good news from Secure 2.0, I guess, is that simple IRA, SEP IRA. I mean, now these SEP plans and SIP plans, they allow Roths now. So that's good.
And the government is sneaky. They like Roths. Why? Because they get their tax money up front.
Oh, so they're not doing something nice for us.
Yeah, no, they want the money up front because they're short-sighted planners. So we should take advantage of that.
Absolutely.
Their short-sightedness, because they only look at 10-year budget cycles. So they happen to be probably, luckily for all of us, Congress are the worst financial planners on earth. They just look at the money they get up front, because then they kick the can down the road. We have to plan with the end in mind and start storing up tax-free vehicles, tax-free income. That's so important as a hedge against what I believe at some point will be future higher rates.
Yes, absolutely. 100% agree. So glad to have with us today Ed Slott, America's leading IRA expert, with us on the Simplify Retirement podcast today. And also, too, the way I look at IRAs versus Roth IRAs, one analogy I always use with my clients is, I'd rather pay tax on the seed rather than the harvest. I'd rather pay tax today on a small amount than a larger amount later at an unknown tax rate. And I think that anyone who's
any day I take that deal, pay tax on the seed, and the crop grows for free.
That's right, absolutely. So, Ed, what do you say to people who sometimes I get the question? People are always concerned. Well, what happens when the government changes the rules for Roth IRAs, and now all of a sudden you took this deal, you paid the tax now, you deferred the earnings till later. You say it's all going to be tax free. Can the government change that on us later? What do you say to those?
Oh, you're too nice. The question I usually get is some worse version of that. I'll give you the PG version, but in every program, I'm sure it'll happen in your program. I'm glad that you hit me with that question. I get a question, something along the lines, say, but Ed, because I talk about the Roths, because I love tax-free. I like keeping more of my hard-earned money. Who wouldn't?
Right.
So they always say, Ed, that's Roth sounds great, but can I trust the government to keep their word that Roth IRAs will always be tax-free? And my answer is no, you can't trust Congress as far as you can throw them. We have a saying among CPAs and tax advisors, tax laws are written in pencil. They can always be changed. But I just gave you the secret why I don't believe the Congress is going to go back on this Roth deal, because it brings in money up front, and they love the Roth. Secretly, they love the Roth because they get their money up front. So I don't think they're going to ever do anything to kill their golden goose. They use the Roth IRA now, like you just said, in Secure 2.0. I call it Rothomania. They loaded up the tax law with Roth provisions. You just said it. Roth SEP IRAs, Roth Simple IRAs, Roth matching contributions, or Roth catch-up contributions, 529 to Roth.
Yeah.
Why did they do that? Because that's what's paying for everything else. They look at the Roth as a revenue generator. So I don't think they're ever going to touch it. They might trim around the edges a little, but they're not going to kill the golden goose that brings in the money.
Yeah, I love that too. That's the thing people just need to be aware of, how much, Congress, the IRS, they love tax money now because they're so short-sighted. And so it's to their benefit.
Why not take advantage of this?
Yeah, that's right. Finally, imagine getting one up on them. That's not easy to do, but that'd be great. So
that's getting your plan, so you don't end up with a government plan.
Right.
The goal is to have less in your IRA and 401k when it's time to pay tax, and more of it sheltered, tax-free forever.
Wow.
For the rest of your life, and even under the Secure Act. Once it's in a Roth, it's income tax-free for the rest of your life, and you never have to take the money out unless you want to. And if you do, in retirement, it'll be tax-free. And if you don't, it can still grow for 10 more years tax-free, income tax-free to your beneficiaries.
Yes. That's amazing. And I think that's another misconception people don't realize is that there are no required minimum distributions on Roth IRA accounts because there's no taxes. And so that's another benefit.
Account. You have to pay to get it.
Yes.
But that's where strategizing with somebody like you to sit down with a financial and tax advisor to go through what's best for you. I'm giving generalities here. Obviously, we're on the program. Not everything applies to everybody's situation. That's why it would behoove you to come down. I hope to meet you all at the John Knox Pavilion. That's Thursday night. Coming up soon, May 11th at 7 p.m. That's in Lee's Summit, Missouri. I can't wait to get down there. And then you'll learn more about everything Steve and I are talking about and have an opportunity to take action and take advantage of low rates and have an expert like Steve explain to you how these things we're talking about apply specifically to your situation. Not everything's for everybody.
That's right. That's exactly right. And that's why it's so important to have, like you said, this is just general talking here, general advice. But yeah, everyone needs to look at their own situation, maybe their tax brackets, maybe their other income, maybe their income, amounts and that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of considerations to take into account here. I guess especially when people get closer to age, 65. And we're talking about Roth, IRA conversions to Roth IRAs. Obviously, you get closer to Medicare age. There's even more things we have to consider as we get closer.
That is a consideration.
Yes.
But the big consideration is how much you can keep when it counts at the end. When you reach in for yours, the point is you want to have as much tax-free as possible so you never have to worry about taxes going up just when your turn comes to take money out in retirement.
Absolutely. I love the emphasis that you talk about here. It's about what you can keep. And the problem with IRAs and 401ks is no one knows, honestly, you don't know how much of that you're going to get to keep. Whereas if it's in these tax-free accounts, then that it's all yours.
Yeah, you keep 100%.
Yes.
I never have, it's so funny. I do these programs all over the country. That's why I can't wait to come to see everybody at the John Knox Pavilion.
Yes.
But, the country politically, everybody's so polarized and against everything. I got to tell you this. We have a lot of fun at these programs, and everybody agrees with me. 100%. Tax-free is always better.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to get
I never had a problem with that.
Yeah, that's right.
Nope, 100% agreement, and you're going to see the same thing. Why pay more than you have to?
Absolutely. I know people used to say, hey, well, the reason why you invest in a traditional IRA versus a Roth IRA is because down the road you're going to be in a lower tax bracket. And just from a practical standpoint, as a financial planner, what I realized early on is when people go into retirement, they're not living on less than they were making before they retired. So at the very least, you're going to be in the same exact tax bracket when you get to retirement. And certainly from what we've talked about during our podcast today, more than likely over someone's experience in retirement, their tax brackets are actually going to be higher than when they were working.
Yeah, I've seen that. For years I did tax returns. I had a CPA tax practice. And I remember a few years ago, I had a guy coming in doing his taxes, and this was the tax return for the first year he was fully retired. So his expectations were, I'm going to do great this year. I don't have my job, fully retired, and his income and his tax came up much larger. Mm-hmm. He said, how could this be? My income's higher than my best working years. Right. I said, because you had this IRA that grew and grew and grew, and now you're subject to required minimum distributions, which are, in fact, higher than your best working years. So you actually are in a higher bracket. Now, that goes against logic because people figure, well, if I don't have a job, I'm retired, wouldn't my income be lower? Not if you have a growing, building debt to the government in terms of an IRA or 401k. Right. Not only that, that's just on the income side. So your income's higher, but you know what else kicks up the tax bill? Your deductions are lower. You don't have, when you're retired, coming into retirement, you don't have deductions or tax benefits for dependent kids anymore. Right. You don't have, most people have paid off their mortgage, so they don't have mortgage interest anymore. So they don't have the big deductions they were used to having. They don't have deductions for contributing to a 401k. Right. Plus, most people now take the standard deduction. Yes. So in essence, deductions are less and income's higher. We can change that by doing some great planning now.
Absolutely. And one thing I've been thinking about recently is like a surviving spouse. So all of a sudden, you have a 2-income family, and so you've been doing your tax returns married, filing jointly, and all of a sudden one spouse dies. You've got this massive IRA. You're taking required minimum distributions from. You've got this income coming in, and all of a sudden now one person's filing as a single filer. And so there's another potential tax, bomb that's out there.
Yeah, I call that the widow's penalty. And if anybody is in that situation, you should make sure you attend this program because there are benefits that you can you can change that situation. Otherwise, you'll be paying tax off the charts for the rest of your life.
Absolutely. Well, there you go. The widow's penalty. We got. If you're listening to the podcast today, make sure you plan to come out to our live event with Ed Slott right here in Kansas City. I'm not sure how many times Ed has been out here, but he's gonna be out here this week. This coming month, in May 11th. On Thursday night, May 11th, the John Knox Pavilion right here in Lee Summit, Missouri. So hopefully if you're listening to this podcast today, you get registered for that event. And Paul will tell us later on how to get registered for that event if you're listening to the podcast today. So we're just continuing this discussion just a little bit more here on IRAs, Roth IRAs with America's leading IRA expert, Ed Slott. Ed, you alluded to this just a few minutes ago about the stretch IRA, and so one of the things that the Secure 2.0 Act that made us less secure was they eliminated the stretch IRA, and so now I just want to make sure everybody understands that now when someone inherits an IRA, especially if they're a non-spouse, but they're still a designated beneficiary, they can only keep that IRA intact for 10 more years. And the whole thing has to be distributed within 10 years.
Government, that was the Insecure Act, I should call it, the Secure Act, which made the insecure. And even during lifetime, the more you build up an IRA, you could get hit during your own life with higher taxes. But if not you, your beneficiaries may fall into this 10-year trap. They probably will if you don't do this the planning correctly. They'll fall into the 10-year trap where these beneficiaries, remember, if the average person, say you dies at 80 or 85, chances are your beneficiaries might be already in their 50s or 60s. They may be in their own highest earning years and get zapped with all of these taxes. When you look at planning, you look at the whole family, your life, your beneficiary's life, and that's where you can see tremendous savings long-term by doing some planning now. Or get, at a minimum, come to the program, get started asking questions with planning now while rates are low. This is the time to strike.
Absolutely. And so this is the same for Roth IRAs. I guess now the rule's the same. So even if you inherit a Roth IRA as a non-spouse, those beneficiaries have 10 years, but at least they can let that money grow tax deferred for 10 years. At the end of that 10 years, it's all tax-free. Yes.
That's a great deal.
Gotcha. And then when we're talking about IRAs, Roth IRAs, beneficiaries, I know this is something that that you like to talk about as well. As far as naming individuals, you believe that it's better to name an individual as an IRA or Roth IRA beneficiary as opposed to a trust as a beneficiary of an IRA?
Not in every case.
Okay.
This is where, if you have a large IRA, there are a lot of people with large IRAs that may need a trust because they want control. But under the Secure Act, control post-death to make sure the kids don't squander it, don't blow it. The average client I had over the years, they would say, it's not my kids I worry about. It's the ones they marry.
Right.
They always say that. They're always worried. What if my kid blows it? They get married, they get divorced, and all of a sudden all the money I worked for 30, 40 years goes to somebody I don't even know. I don't want any of that, so they name trusts. But now IRAs are a very bad asset to leave to a trust. Roth IRA would be better because of the 10-year payout, because of the high trust taxes. The Secure Act pretty much killed the trust planning for IRAs, not for Roth IRAs. That's one solution. But IRAs, if you have named a trust as a beneficiary, you really need to update your plan. It probably won't work as intended anymore, and the boatload, the lion's share of your of the IRA you're building up, say, for your beneficiaries, will go to the government at very high tax rates. So if that's you, you should mark this date on your calendar, the May 11th program that I'll be doing in the John Knox Pavilion in Lee Summit, Missouri. Steve says it's right here. Not for me. I'm coming from New York, so it's not right here for me. But I'll be happy to make that trip to share all of these strategies with you. I'm telling you, you'll have a great time. It'll open your eyes to how much can be saved, both for you and your beneficiaries, from taxes. Taxes are the single biggest factor that will separate you from your retirement savings. There's no question about it. The only question is, why don't more people do something about it? Because they don't know or they don't take action. The goal of this program on May 11th is to open your eyes to the situation and let you see some alternative solutions where you can actually end up having more, keeping more, and making it last.
That's awesome. That it really is going to be amazing. We're excited to have you here. I know you're there in New York, but come out here to the heart of America and the middle of America here in Kansas City and Lee Summit here on May 11th. Can't wait for that. Can't wait to share the evening with you and have you teach us these things and really how to put together a plan, how to keep more of your money that you've earned and all these kinds of things. It's going to be a great night. We're also going to have some desserts and coffee after Ed speaks to give you a chance to meet Ed and also maybe get a book signed by Ed, but also get your picture taken with him as well. So we're looking forward to having Ed here in Lee Summit on May 11th on Thursday night. Just a couple more topics I want to touch base with you here before we let you go on the podcast today, Ed, just real quickly, if that's possible, on 529s versus Roth IRA. So I know we talked a lot about Roth IRAs today. A lot of people look at a Roth IRA as a college savings vehicle, and sometimes we get asked that question. I mean, should I use a Roth even for college savings, or should I go to the college savings 529 type of plan? What do you say to that?
Well, there are arguments on both sides. I like the Roth because you have the most flexibility. The money in the Roth can be used for anything. I mean, you can bet it on a horse if you want to. Don't do that. I'm just saying you could use that.
Yes.
You could use it for anything, whereas 529s must be used for education, and if they're not used, there could be penalties at some point. So it's more restrictive, but on the other side, you can put a lot more money into 529s. But the downside we're finding now, some people have already overfunded their 529s. I remember having a client recently saying, look at all this money in my 529s. I won't be able to use it. I said, what happened? He says, my nutty kid, he had to go be smart and get a scholarship. Now, now what am I going to do?
Yes, you get the penalty for your kid being smart and getting a scholarship. You get to pay the tax and the penalty.
Yeah, so you have to, and remember, the money has to marinate for many years. So you don't know when a child is born, or 1 or 2 years old. Everybody thinks they're the smartest kid. You know, my kid's the smartest. But you know what? They may go to college, they may get a scholarship, they may not go to college. There's too many variable factors that you have to plan way out for. With the Roth, true, you can't put as much in each year, but over many years, it can be used for anything. And if you have the Roth for the 5 years and age 59 and a half, then at that point, I still would use that as a last resort for college.
Yeah.
But if that's the only money, because Roth money to me is like gold. Yes. You know, it's the holy grail. It's growing absolutely tax free. So that's the last money you want to hit.
Absolutely.
But it can be hit for education, totally tax free.
That's amazing. That's right. I guess one of the other things about the Secure 2.0 Act that was a good thing is now they are going to allow rollovers. I guess from
very limited though. Very limited. It's not as a big a deal as people are making it out to be. It's limited to really just a few thousand a year with a total cap of 35,000 over the. And there are too many limitations. The account has to be open for 15 years.
Oh wow!
The last. Any contributions made in the last 5 years don't even qualify, and the maximum lifetime amount is $35,000. And it's good, you know, if you wanted. I mean, it's a great provision in theory, like you said. 529 to Roth, get it in the Roth. This would be great. But you're limited. So if you're overfunded by 100 or 200,000, it could chip away at that. Or if you just have 30 or 40 left, it could be a good deal. But you'd have to do it over a number of years. It would take a few years because the most you could put in do this transfer rollover from 529 to Roth each year is the IRA contribution limit, which right now is $6,500. So it would take a few years to do it. So there's a couple of hurdles to clear and obstacles to overcome with that. The idea is good, but I happen to like the Roth because there's more freedom. I love tax freedom, where you can do anything you want. You don't have to worry, I didn't use it the right way, and now this happened and that happened. The Roth, once it's tax free, Once you've held it for 5 years and you're 59 and a half, everything that comes out of there is income tax free. You're in the promised land. That's where you want to be.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's just very interesting. It's one of these things, again, I'm hearing about, hey, you can roll over 529s or Roth IRA, and it sounds like, oh, this is easy. But of course, there's all these asterisks. There's all these, limitations. Yeah. Like you said, you can only do it up to the limit
to overcome
of a contribution. Very interesting. One last thing. I'm so glad to be joined today by Ed Slott. He's America's IRA expert. On our Simplify Retirement podcast today. We're so thankful to have Ed join us on our podcast. So I'm so glad to be part of his elite IRA advisor group. I learned so much from Ed, his team, going to his meetings each year and getting my own continuing education credits and learning about all these things. And we're so excited that Ed's going to be out here in Lee Summit, Missouri on May 11th at the awesome John Knox Pavilion here in Lee Summit, coming up at in just a little while. One last topic.
Before you get to that last thing, we've been talking about this, and I'm getting excited to be out there, the John Knox Pavilion, May 11th, 7 p.m. But how do you register? You never said one thing. How do they get there? How do they sign up?
Thank you, Ed. I appreciate it.
Yeah, if I'm listening, I'm saying, I got my pen ready. What do I do?
Exactly. Well, one of the main things people can do is obviously just call our office here and say you want to register for that event. The office line is 816-246-WISE. That's 816-246-9473. Certainly that's one way to register. Another way to register is by just emailing us at info@wisewealth.com, info@wisewealth.com. And those would be the main two ways to register for this event. So, Ed, thank you for that, for asking that question. And
well, I was curious myself. I mean, we were talking about it, getting excited, and I'm thinking somebody's sitting there saying, well, when is he going to tell us how to reserve my spot?
Right. Thank you.
You're burying the lead.
Right. Exactly. Getting more training here from Ed than just IRA tax advice.
We get too excited, you and I, Steve, about IRA tax planning, help people keep thousands, tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands more of their money. And we forgot to tell. We got so excited. We just kept saying, oh, we're going to be there. We're going to be there.
Yeah, we'd like for people to
register. But we want you there, too.
Right. We want to know who's coming. Yeah, that would be helpful. So it is definitely an event that we need people to register for so we can plan accordingly. We do have desserts and coffees and seats to prepare. So thank you, Ed, for that. We do need a registration. So please RSVP by calling us at 816-246-9473. Before we let Ed go on the podcast today, Ed, one more topic I just wanted to ask you about just briefly would be Social Security. We've been hearing from Social Security that they're going to have enough income coming in to pay about 78% of expected benefits, and that's going to, starting 2034. And just recently, I heard something about 2033. Just real quickly, what are your thoughts about Social Security? What do people need to know? And are you going to talk about this at all on May 11th?
No, because nobody knows. But here's my thoughts on that. Because each year, as it gets closer where they have to do something, they kick the can down the road. That's the way of Congress. What I would say, anybody close to Social Security age, close to claiming or already there, you have nothing to worry about. They're never going to cut back, my opinion, because most people on Social Security do one thing that Congress listens to. What do they do?
Vote.
They vote.
Yes.
They vote.
Yep.
You saw on both sides of the aisle. It's not even political, really. Anybody that says hits the third rail, that's why they call Social Security in Congress the third rail. I believe that's correct. They're not going to touch the third rail.
Right.
Because, remember, people say, well, people are getting so much. You know what? People that are getting Social Security paid for that.
Right.
That's a paid-for program. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying it's all paid. They have enough money. But every week, every 2 weeks, whenever you got paid for the last 40 years, remember that first job you got when you said, who is this guy, FICA, and why is he taking my money?
Yes.
Well, that's the money. You paid for this. This is not a handout. This is money you're entitled to. So they're going to have a tough time touching that third rail. So I wouldn't worry about it.
Good. Yeah.
You know who I would worry about it? The younger generation.
Right.
They're going to have to find a new way. But I don't mind if, I'm an older guy, so I don't mind if my kids and grandkids keep paying in for me. I'm okay with that.
Right, exactly. That's very true. Yeah, like what you said, that's one of those things they're not going to touch. It's not a winning strategy, and we know that Congress, if they love anything besides tax revenue, it is getting reelected. And so
that's right.
That's certainly something that they're not going to mess with. So I agree with that. I obviously
not for people that have paid in their whole life.
Right.
I mean, that to me would be the ultimate double cross. So I don't think that would, because this is not like other cover. This is not an entitlement program.
Right.
This is something that was paid for. You paid for it.
Yeah, a lot of people call it an entitlement program, but so I agree with you. People that are younger, that are farther away from retirement, they should maybe play in something different, and certainly Congress will probably have to do something before then, and maybe raise the retirement age and so forth, and raise taxes. Of course, is one of the big ones, which is one of the main reasons why you're on our podcast today. One of the main reasons why. We invited you to come out here to Lee Summit, Missouri on May 11th. Ed Slott, we're looking forward to having you out here.
I am looking forward to it so much. I can't wait to get out there. I'll say it one more time, the John Knox Pavilion. I'm coming in from New York, so I'll be there in Lee Summit, Missouri, 7 o'clock. Thursday, May 11th. I hope to see you there. You're going to learn how to have more, keep more, and make it last. Get your plan, not the government plan. Learn how to take control of your tax rates and pay what you want to pay, not what the government wants you to pay. And one thing, I keep talking about the tax and the government, Steve. I'm not anti-tax or anti-government or anything like that. I'm proud to be an American paying taxes. The only thing is, I could be just as proud for half the money. How about you? That's all I'm saying. That's what we're going to talk about.
Yep, that's great. Well, we can't wait to see Ed here just very soon here on May 11th at 7 p.m. And when Ed gets done speaking that night, we are going to have desserts and coffees and pastries, so you get a chance to meet Ed as well. And again, if you want to register for that event, you can call us here at our office, 816-246-9473, 816-246-9473, or email us at info@wisewealth.com. So thankful to have Ed Slott, America's IRA expert, on the Simplify Retirement podcast today, and we'll look forward to seeing him here live in Lee Summit on May 11th. Thank you very much.